of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada since 1972. He distributed Srila Prabhupada's books from 1973 to 75 and served as a pujari in Amsterdam and in Germany. Between 1977 and 79, he traveled and preached with Bhakti-tirtha Swami and Devamrit Swami throughout Eastern Europe. From 1982 to 85, he oversaw Lord Narsinghdev's worship in Simhachalam, Germany. In 1987, ISKCON's GBC body appointed him as an initiating guru, and up to 1995, he helped compile and publish Pancharatra Pradip, ISKCON's manual for temple deity worship. He also served ISKCON's GBC as the minister for deity worship until 2005. Along with all these and other services, and encouraged by senior ISKCON leaders, in 1995 he resumed formal academic study which he had interrupted in 1972. He completed BA in religious studies from the University of California at Santa Barbara and MA in the study of religion from the Graduate Theological Union at Berkeley, and a Master of Studies in the study of religion from the University of Oxford, UK. He did his PhD from the University of Oxford, finishing his studies in 2003. Based on his doctoral dissertation, he then published Chaitanya Vaishnava Murti Seva as a devotional truth with the Routledge Hindu Studies series. He is now a research fellow of the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. He also acts as the Dean of Studies at Bhaktivedanta College in Radhadesh, Belgium, where he has been teaching since 2002. He took formal sannyas vows on the Janmashtami day in 2014, and he travels extensively for teaching, counseling, and to support spiritual communities in the Vaishnava devotional tradition. Let us welcome His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Swami Maharaj to Shri Radha Gopinath Temple in our traditional style by loudly chanting Haribo, Haribo, Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your kind introduction. I'm happy to be here again in Chowpatty, Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir. I'm on my way from Hong Kong to Warsaw. So I'm in transit. We're all in transit, actually. We're just transiting this material world. And in that regard, we have heard the sad news this morning of the departure of His Holiness Kadamba Swami Maharaj yesterday. Sad for us, glorious for him, having departed in Vrindavan, surrounded by devotees, loving devotees, chanting the holy name. Departing during the Abhijit Muhurta at midday. So, for him, glorious, back home, back to Godhead, certainly an example of the perfection of devotional service. But sad for us, who are bereft of his association. I personally feel some darkness, some sadness. He has been a very dear friend for many years. I thought it will be good to sing on this occasion this song composed by Srila Narottama Thakura from his Prarthana, Anilo prema-dhana. So I suppose you may find on your phone nowadays everyone if you want the text. And I suggest that the first time that we sing through, we can sing twice. The first time that we don't play kartals or mridanga, so this will be more meditative. Je Anilo prema-dhana Koruna pracur Anilo Koruna pracur heno prabhu kothā gelā ācārya-t kothā gelā ācārya-t kaha mora swarup rupa kaha shanata kaha mora swarup rupa kaha shanata kaha Dasa Raghunatha patita-pāvan kaha mora a-juga kaha kavira kaha mora a-juga kaha kavira eka-kāle kothā gelā gora-natara pasane kutibo mata anale pasibo pasane kutibo mata Goranga gunera nidhi kothā gelā bhavo se-saba Shangira Shange Je koilo gelā se-sańga na pailo kande Narottama Anilo prema-dhana Koruna pracur Anilo heno prabhu kothā gelā ācārya-t kahamo sharupa Janita Dasa Raghunatha patita-pāvan Kamora a-juga eka-kāle kothā gelā gora nathara Asane kotipo mata Anile pasipo Asane kotipo mata Anile pasipo Goranga gunera nidhi kothā gelā se-saba sangira sange je koilo Vilapa se-sańga na paya kande Narottama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Hari Bol. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where has such a personality as Srinivasa-acārya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. Se-sańga napaya kande Narottama Das. So we could leave this here. I can use this as a desk. No, leave. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Svabhadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. This morning we're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, Punishment and Reward of Kali, verse 21. Sutta Uvacha Evang Dharme Pravadati Evam Dharme Pravadati Sasangrat Vijasattama Sasangrat Vijasattama Samahitena Manasa Samahitena Manasa Vikheda Paryachashtatam Vikheda Paryachashtatam Sutta Uvacha Evang Dharme Pravadati Sasangrat Vijasattama Samahitena Manasa Vikheda Paryachashtatam.
Sutta Uvacha Evam Dharme Pravadati Sasamrat Vijasattama Samahitena Manasa Vikheda Paryachashtatam Sutta Uvacha Evam Dharme Pravadati Sasamrat Vijasattama Samahitena Manasa Vikheda Paryachashtatam Sutta Uvacha Evam Dharme Pravadati Sasangrat Vijasattama Samahitena Manasa Vikheda Paryachashtatam
Ladies? Don't be shy. No? Okay. Sutta Uvacha. Sutta Goswami said, Evam, so, Dharme, the personality of religion, Pravadati, thus having spoken, Sa, he, Sangrat, the emperor, Dvijasattama, O best among the Brahmins, Samahitena, with proper attention, Manasa, by the mind, Vikeda, without any mistake, Paryachashta, counter-replied, Tam, unto him. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Translation, Sutta Goswami said, O best among the Brahmins, the Emperor Parikshit, thus hearing the personality of religion speak, was fully satisfied. And without mistake or regret, he gave his reply. Purport, the statement of the bull, the personality of religion, was full of philosophy and knowledge. And the king was satisfied, since he could understand that the suffering bull was not an ordinary one. Unless one is perfectly conversant with the law of the Supreme Lord, one cannot speak such things touching philosophical truths. The emperor, being also on an equal level with sagacity, sageness, replied to the point without doubts or mistakes. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Since this is a kind of transition verse between the speech by Dharma, the bull, Dharma personified, and Maharaj Parikshit's response, perhaps we should go back a little bit to review what is it that the bull has said. But first we need to know what he's responding to. He is responding to a question from the king, the emperor, the Samrat. What was that question? Those of you who have been listening, who are here, anyone want to tell us what King Parikshit, Maharaj Parikshit, has asked the bull? That was a few days ago discussed, I believe. No one? Too many days ago to remember. Something roughly what it must have been that he was asking. Who is the cause of your suffering? Okay, so it's a question about cause. And we'll talk about that, but the response of Dharma, verse 17 says, Dharma uvacha. His response is quite interesting. Of course, it's interesting that there's a king and he's talking to a non-human being, to a bull. It suggests that what we're reading is an allegory, although it doesn't explicitly say. There is another case in the 4th canto. Narada Muni is speaking with King Prachina Barhi, and he is speaking an extended allegory, which is explicitly identified as an allegory, but here it's an implied allegory. What is an allegory? An allegory is where you have abstract principles being personified. That would be one explanation. What is an allegory? So here we have an abstract principle. What is the abstract principle? It's Dharma. Dharma is one of the most abstract principles in our tradition. But Dharma is personified. Dharma is embodied, not in a human being, but in a bull. Mm-hmm. And this bull is speaking. And what is he speaking? What is his response? He says, these words just spoken by you befit a personality of the Pandava dynasty. So first he's complimenting the king. He elaborates on that, and then he says, O greatest among human beings, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. Says it's difficult. Why is it difficult? He puts the blame on himself for not being able to determine what is the cause. What is that blame? We are bewildered. Vakyaveda vimohita. Not only mohita, but vimohita. We're very, very confused. By what? Vakyaveda. There's so many vakyas, so many statements, so many opinions. Bheda, they're split. There's a variety. There's so many of them. And then he gives some detail in the next, I think, 2 verses. Kechit, some, vikalpa vasana, some of the philosophers who deny all sorts of duality declare that one's own self is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. Well, there's something to that, right? We understand something similar from Bhagavad Gita. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible, while yet others say that activity, karma, is responsible. And the gross materialists maintain that nature is the ultimate cause. Here, nature's translation of se-saba. Yes, and verse 20, which you discussed yesterday, I believe, he continues, there are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage amongst kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. So he puts the burden of determining cause back on the king. Says, I can't say what is the cause of my suffering. And he appeals to the fact that there are so many opinions, there are so many ways to explain causality. One of the most prominent themes of the Bhagavatam, we could say, is causality. What is the cause? And of course, you can say the short answer is there in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam. What is that short answer? Which is not so short because it's a long verse. Janmadyasya yaton vayad itaratas charte svavigya svara. The absolute truth, satyam param dhimahi, is the cause of janma adi, of the birth, etc., of everything. That's okay, all right, good. So what is that absolute truth? And then the Bhagavatam is elaborating, what is that satyam param? The entire Bhagavatam. But within this elaboration of what is the cause of all causes, the Bhagavatam is complicating. It's showing how complicated understanding causality can be. And we might say that one of the lessons of the Bhagavatam as a whole, but of this particular passage, this episode, is a lesson for us, is be careful in blaming. We all have this tendency, I think. Maybe I shouldn't be so inclusive. I have this tendency to assign blame when someone is disturbing me, when someone is disappointing me, when something happens which is unpleasant, which is cause of suffering. I want to point to someone. It's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault. Anybody else here have that experience? Okay, I'm not alone. I'm greatly relieved. And there's a reason why we do that, isn't it? There's a reason. Because we want to understand why things happen, and we would like for them to not happen. And so we want to see how can this, whatever it is, this cause, how can it be stopped? One interesting, I think, example, analogy for this I came across is two young men are walking alongside some river, not the Ganga, and near the shore they see floating by a baby child who is struggling. It's not dead. So one of the young men immediately jumps in the river and saves this baby. How did this happen? A minute later, another baby is seen floating by it. Again, the young man jumps in, saves the baby. And they start to wonder, what is going on here? And then They go upstream, they're walking upstream, and after some distance they see some crazy man is, who knows where he's gotten these babies from, he's throwing them into the river one after another. Hey, what are you doing? So they managed to stop him, to get him arrested, taken away, and what happens to the babies, find their parents, whatever. The point is that they found the cause upstream from what they saw was the problem. So we all know more or less in our own experience of life. We're all managers of our own lives. That when there's some problem, look for the cause upstream. Find what it is that's possibly not visible to you immediately, and solve the problem there. Don't keep rescuing babies from the river, So that understanding, that explains why it is we're looking for a cause for troubles that we experience. And the sooner we can point to someone and say, aha, this person is the cause. The sooner we can do that, the quicker we feel some kind of psychological satisfaction. I have found the cause of my misery. Stop him. Well, that's a tendency we all have, and that is a tendency which we as Vaishnavas want to learn to curb, because we want to look for causes behind the immediate cause. And this is a theme which is very much there in the Bhagavatam. And it's already there in the first canto. Famously, in the first canto, earlier than this chapter, there's a discussion on exactly this same point. Now let's see if you can think of who I'm thinking of in a discussion about causality earlier in Canto 1. Anyone? Yes, Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev is approached by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj is greatly distressed at what has taken place. The battle of Kurukshetra has been massively destructive. He feels responsible. He feels himself to be the cause. And Bhishmadev is reassuring him otherwise. And in his reassurance, he is considering various possible other causes. And there's a kind of irony that the actual cause is right there standing next to him. The actual cause is Lord Krishna himself, who is, as Bhishma is lying, preparing to depart from the world, is there together with the Pandavas and so many others. And Bhishmadev does not want to say, you are the cause. He says, maybe it is time, maybe it is karma, so many maybes. And Krishna is standing right there, and he is, as the cause of all causes. Bhishma does not want to put blame on Krishna, even though he recognizes that he is the cause of all causes. The atheist wants to put blame for evil, for miseries of the material world on God, in order to argue that one of two possibilities. One, actually there is no God, or two, the person who is blaming God wants to say, I would be a much better God because I would not allow this suffering which we see. Now, it's an interesting question. Why is it then that the Vaishnava refuses to put blame on God if the Vaishnava at the same time acknowledges that the cause of all causes is one particular person and his name is Krishna? Why do you suppose that we refuse to put blame on him? Well, we could think of a good number of reasons, but I want to suggest one, and we can think about it. The Lord is the source of everything unlimitedly, and therefore, as the creator of all existence, he is a plenitude. You know the word plenitude? Means plenty. There's no limit. He is a plenitude of intentions. We often hear God has more than one purpose whenever he does anything, whenever he performs his pastimes. He accomplishes many different things simultaneously. Well, does he accomplish many things or does he accomplish unlimited things? And so when we put blame on a person for doing something or for not doing, for neglecting something, for example, in law, in the legal sphere, there's always a question, there is a concern, who is to blame for someone's suffering? And is that person who is to blame to be punished? So, is God to be punished if he is the cause of all causes? Somehow that doesn't make any sense, does it? Punishing God. So why does it not make sense? Because his purposes are unlimited. And what we see of his purposes is only a tiny fraction in the results, in the events that take place. So again, the Bhagavatam is all about, as one of its major themes, it's very much about understanding causality. Because we feel, if I can understand why things are the way they are, then I will understand how to act myself. A very interesting example of the question of causality, I believe an interesting example, is in the third canto. When the four Kumaras are becoming tourists, and they decide to visit Vaikuntha, and they've passed through 6 out of 7 of the gates of Vaikuntha, and they come to the final gate, and we all know what happens when they come to the final gate. They're stopped, and they're challenged. Who are you? Where do you think you're going? And the four Kumaras, appearing as small children who are naked, are obstructed by Jai and Vijay, which leads to an altercation, to some speeches back and forth, leading to the curse of Jai and Vijay. And there's a lot of discussion by the commentators in this discussion, about this discussion. Who is to blame? Is it the four Kumaras? Is it Jai and Vijay? Is it a combination of them? Is it neither of them? And then Lord Narayan himself, when he hears all the commotion, he comes, he appears, and he says, all of this is my fault. He volunteers himself as the cause of the trouble. He says, this has all been arranged by me. It's been arranged, and he explains, it's been arranged by me because I have my purposes. And the Lord's purpose is multiple, and that becomes elaborated in the course of the Bhagavatam, especially in the 7th canto. So this search for causality and identifying causality, for the Vaishnavas, it's always a process that one is very careful about. And that's the example that's being given by the personification of Dharma, such that Maharaj Parikshit is going to declare this in the next verse. He's going to say, Dharmam bravishi dharma gya dharma asi vrisha rupa drik. You are Dharma itself. How do I know that you are Dharma? Because of how you have answered my question. And how has he answered the question? In a very non-committal way, which is surprising considering the style of the Dharma Shastras. If we would step back for a moment and consider Dharma Shastra, much of what Dharma Shastra about is identifying a culprit, someone who has done a wrong, done a crime, and giving specifications how that person is to be punished depending on what their offense has been. That's Dharma Shastra. Much of Dharma Shastra is on that subject. Here is personified Dharma himself. He's saying, I cannot tell you who is the cause of my suffering. Well, there's a lot of irony here because he, personified Dharma, what does that mean to say that he has been inflicted suffering? Well, one way to understand that, carrying the allegory, is that Dharma suffers. The condition of there being the following of Dharma, of dharmic principles, suffers. And that is the case in this particular age, in particular, the age of Kali. This is the situation we find ourselves in. Who can we blame for this condition? Maybe we should blame Maharaj Parikshit, because in the next several verses, it's going to be described that when he confronts personified Kali, he wants to kill him. What does Kali do? He throws himself before the king and says, I surrender unto you, now you have to give me shelter. Ha ha. He's outsmarted him. You can't kill me because I'm taking shelter of you. And then, as it works out, yes, you can take shelter where? Those places where sinful activities are engaged in. 4 sinful activities, places of those sinful activities, and a 5th place, the place where gold is accumulated, is stored. Those places we see, especially the largest structures in our cities are those places, banks, multi-story banks. So we could point to those places, we could point to Maharaj Parikshit and say, you are at fault, you have allowed, we would not have to suffer if you had killed personified Kali. But no, Maharaj Parikshit gave him shelter. Why? Because he is a principled leader who follows this dharma, that when someone takes shelter of you, you have to give shelter. How much trouble could have been saved if he had forgotten that principle? But he didn't. And so here we are in the age of Kali, and what to do? Hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam. This is the explanation given why we in this age, what to do is to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam, isn't it? Dharmes, what is it? Krishna Swadharmo Bhagate Dharma Jnana Adibisaha Kalo Nashtadrishamesha Puranarko Aduno Udita. Now, Aduna, in this age, what do we have left but to listen to hear, to study, to discuss, to elaborate on, to write about the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki. I'll stop there and Hare Krishna. Do we have time for comments, reflections, questions? It's already 9:15.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for bringing this whole causality, the way it is discussed in the Bhagavatam, very beautifully explained. There is this common question that about causality is about the cause of all causes. So people ask, who created God?
Yeah.
And how do we? And also about about souls. Who created the soul? If there is no time, how do we understand the principle of cause? If there is no time in the spiritual realm.
Yes, we are naturally inclined to such questions which lead to what's called an infinite regress. If there was a cause, and this is generally what can be seen in the material world, is that whenever you identify a cause of something, you can immediately, ask, so what's the cause of that? So what's the cause of that? What's the cause? I'm thinking about the situation we've all been confronted with in the last 3 years, was the sudden outbreak of a pandemic called COVID. What is the cause? Where is the cause? And all kinds of efforts have been made to find that cause. But whatever that cause is, you can keep asking that question. You can keep, all right, but what was the cause of that? What was the cause? And another interesting example is climate change. What is the cause of climate change? Well, a lot of science seems to indicate that it's caused by human activity. Okay, so what is that activity? And you can go on and on and on. Krishna has a very short answer to causes in the material world. kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava. Mahashano mahapatma vidhyenam iha vairinam. Kama and krodha, these are the causes. Lust and anger. But okay, thinking now in philosophical terms, philosophy of religion, if we say there is a cause of everything and that cause is a person, then we want to ask, what is the cause of that person? And notice the form of that question, what? And the devotee says, it's not what, it's who. It's not about, so you might want to ask, so who was the cause of God? But if you ask that question, then you're implying that who is going to be greater than the one you've identified as God. So that who, okay, now he or she or a combination or is God. And unless you stop the infinite regress of questioning and accept that a qualification of God, what makes God God, is that there's no more causes behind him. If you accept that as a part of the definition of God, then you can stop asking that question. And with the question, what about the cause of the Atma, of the self, of the jiva? It's a natural question for us because our ways of thinking are so much confined within the limitations of time and space. And so we want to understand things in terms of time and space. And when we hear there is something which is beyond time and space, the soul has no beginning and has no end, the mind short circuits. There's some short circuiting, we say, doesn't work, and so it jumps back and says, no, that's not possible. So therefore, my question: what is the cause? When did it start? How did it start? And the answer is, it didn't start. All right, then, what's the cause? Well, the cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since we agreed that he is without cause, then we have to accept. And if we agree that he must be without beginning, then we can start to accept that we may also be without beginning. Does that make any sense? I hope so, because I'm not sure it made sense to me. But yes. Is that all right? Hare Krishna. Good. Anything else? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Gauti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.
Let us all thank His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Swami Maharaj for spending his valuable time along with us by loudly chanting 3 times, Hari Bol!